welcome back to Aamsuntitledpodcast. I'm Am. Hi, if you've never met me before, it's really nice to meet you. Welcome to my Percy Jackson dedicated podcast. In today's episode, we are going back to the Mark of Athena book. If you haven't heard my last episode, I reviewed the season 3 teaser, which I'm hoping. Well, D23 is soon, so I'm hoping maybe we will get a full trailer. D23 is next week, Saturday. So, fingers crossed we get another trailer or something that I could talk about. But in the meantime, I am very excited to go back to the Mark of Athena book. If you don't really know how these reviews sort of work, so basically I give you a brief rundown of what happens in the chapter. I talk about kind of the most important things, character relationships, references to previous books, that sort of thing. I would like to put a warning in. I always forget to do this. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I forget. So obviously this episode contains major spoilers from the Mark of Athena book, so I highly recommend reading the book first and then coming to listen to this review. But anyway, let's get into it. Before I talk, I have a really bad habit of talking very for a very long time right at the beginning, and it's got nothing to do with the book, so I don't want to do that. At the minute, my upload days are a little bit all over the place. Anybody who knows, who lives with a family in the house with younger siblings, knows how hard it is to try and get some moments to yourself to sit and record. From next week, it should get a little bit easier and the uploads might be a bit earlier in the week. But for now, I'm sorry, you're going to have to deal with the uploads being slightly mismatched at the minute because it's just whenever I get a chance to sit down and obviously record an episode for you guys, because I like to do this with no interruptions because I do take pride in what I do and I like to make the episode as good as it can be. So, yeah. Sorry if the upload days are a bit weird at the minute. I promise I will probably have a bit more of a routine once the summer holidays are over. But yeah, let's get into it. I'm super excited about this. Let's do it. So in today's episode, we're going to be reviewing chapters 7 to 12. If you haven't heard my review of the first 6 chapters, please go and check that out before listening into this one. Anyway, let's do it. So chapter 7 is Leo's point of view, and it opens up with Hazel and asking Leo who Aunt Rosa is. And he sums it up by saying that she abandoned him after his mother died and left him in foster care. So, if anybody doesn't know, like Leo is one of the characters, particularly in this universe, that has quite sad backstory, which you don't really believe because he's such a happy, sort of easygoing person. And then you kind of get to peel back the layers of his character a little bit and see what he actually is like and the things that he's been through, like the horrific things that he's been through. And it's just like, I think knowing more about his past made him grow on me as a character. I already liked him from the Lost Hero book, but I think particularly in this book and in the next one where he talks a lot about what he's been through and things like that, I think it makes me love his character even more, if that makes sense. And yeah, he's got such an like sad backstory, but it I think he's proof that like the things that have happened in your life don't define who you are. You get to choose who you are. And I think that he's a perfect example of that. And of course, Hazel tells him about how Nico gave her a second chance. You know, she wasn't supposed to be alive. She's not really supposed to be, but this is her second shot at life. And her brother gave her that. And she's obviously so grateful to him for that reason. And she notices how his hands flamed when he was talking to Nemesis, and he explains that obviously that's a Hephaestus power, this ability to be able to control fire, which is pretty cool. And he's um is still like in his head quite haunted by Nemesis calling him a seventh wheel. And it is such a hard thing to hear because obviously like Hazel and Frank are in a relationship, Piper and Jason are in a relationship, Percy and Annabeth have each other, and it's like, is this feeling like he kind of doesn't have anyone? No, I don't just mean like in a romantic context. I mean like it's just like it's a bit sad. I think he feels like a little bit left out sometimes, and Nemesis has kind of really preyed on that. And of course, Hazel, the lovely human being that she is, she tells him not to take it personally or to heart, which is quite sweet. She's really like a big sort of sister to him, which is quite nice. And Hazel brings up the cursed boy, and they hear a voice of a young girl standing 10 feet from the base of the boulder. And Hazel realizes that she is Echo. Um, and she is, of course, alive because the doors of death haven't been fully closed yet. And Echo says that she needs their help, and they follow her into a group of nymphs. Hazel tries to talk to them and one of the nymphs tells her that he won't be interested in them. Now, this I gotta be honest, I had no idea what I was walking into. Like, I know we meet like demigods and like minor gods and goddesses all the time, but for the life of me, I couldn't guess what this was gonna be. And of course, they see a guy that everyone is obsessed with, and Hazel thinks that he's gorgeous. I'm sure he is. I trust her taste. And it's Narcissus, I think that's how you say his name. And he apparently dumped Echo 4,000 years ago, and since then, Hera has cursed her with only being able to repeat things. I hate Hera so much. Like, genuinely, there is not one nice thing that is said about her in any of these books, and I think that that says a lot, to be fair. Like, I'm one of those people where, like, I can dislike a character and then, like, over time see them for who they are and be like, you know what, actually, they're not that bad. She's just one of those characters that I've never been able to get on with. And I'm just like, she has a personal gripe against Annabeth, and that's probably one of the main reasons why I hate her so much. And of course, Leo talks to Narcissus, asking him for a sheet of bronze, but he's too busy admiring himself. Hazel realizes that Echo has brought them here to save Narcissus, who was cursed to fall in love with his own reflection. I think it's just way too late for that. I think he's already like the bottom of the barrel with that. Hazel, Frank, and Echo try to figure out a way to help him, and Leo tells Hazel to summon the bronze to her and run for the ship while him and Echo cause a distraction. Interesting. And Leo, the last thing that he says is that he hopes that they don't die, and that's where the chapter sort of comes to an end. So, chapter 8, again, we're still in Leo's point of view. And of course, Leo gives himself a makeover, and him and Echo start painting him as the next big heartthrob, which of course is planned to make Narcissus jealous. And they start calling Narcissus ugly, which is eventually grabbing the attention of all these nymphs that have been surrounding him. And of course, Narcissus hears them talking down on him, and he notices that the bronze mirror is gone. Oh dear. And he tells the nymphs that whoever finds it, he might kiss her after he kisses his reflection. Oh my god. I remember reading that and being like, what the hell? I knew like the story of Narcissus from Greek mythology, but I was just a bit like, whoa. Like it's different like when he's a character in a book. I feel like it's a bit more like, oh, okay. Um, and he tells them to kill the demigods, the nymphs, obviously. And Leo starts running and tells Hazel to call Arion, but she already has, thank God. Um, and they keep running until they see the Argo. Hazel tells Leo to hold the celestial bronze, and she draws her sword. Leo tells Echo she should forget about Narcissus because she deserves better. Oh, that's so cute. I love Echo. Like I love her as a character, and I do feel bad that she was dumped, and she can 100% do so much better than that. So I love Leo for being a girl's girl and encouraging her and being like, "Yeah, you go chase whatever you want. You deserve better than that." Narcissus and his mob are about to attack them, and obviously Arion swoops in and saves them by creating a sandstorm. Hazel and Leo are about to leave, and Echo tells them that she still wants to save Narcissus, and she kisses him on the cheek, and of course they all leave. Leo realizes that the lesson Nemesis had promised he would learn, and he vowed to never forget Echo. And I was like, oh, that's really cute. Like it was like one of those platonic things, and I was just like, oh, that's adorable. And he's such a good character. Like genuinely, Leo is one of like the sweetest people. So I was interested to see who. I was hoping that Rick would, of course, give him a love angle, and I wanted to know who he ended up with, and I was very happy, and I can't wait to talk about that when we eventually get there. And that's of course how the chapter sort of concludes. Chapter 9 is Piper's point of view. So we're switching up to a whole different side of the story. And Piper is, of course, waiting for Jason to get up. And she takes out her knives and she looks through and she sees an army of Roman demigods led by Octavian telling them to kill the Greeks. Obviously, we know that Octavian has some sort of feud against the Greeks for whatever reason. I don't know why he's behaving like this. I don't. I honestly, to this point, can never understand what his problem is. I think he's just one of those people that are just haters, and like, no matter what you do, you can't change their minds. And what I hate particularly about Octavian is he tries to force his views on other people as well, which I think Rick does like a really good job of saying like you shouldn't always sort of follow the crowd. You should make your own decision about what's right and what's wrong. And of course, she knows. about Raina's feelings for Jason, but she couldn't hate her because at the end of the day, like Jason had a whole life before Piper. Yeah, he can't remember a lot of it, but she can't necessarily blame Raina for having those feelings for him because most of the time those feelings are like they just happen. Like there's no, we're all human at the end of the day. There's no like control over it. And I'm glad like what Rick is trying to show these demigods as, yeah, they are these amazing people with these incredible powers, but also at the end of the day, they are just human and they experience the human feelings just like everyone else, which I quite like about his writing style. And then, of course, the scene shifts to her seeing Jason riding a horse towards a ball with the face of a bearded man and two giants lifting a bronze vase out of a pit. Remember that that's an important little foreshadowing to what happens towards the end of this book. The vision then shifts and she sees Percy and Jason drowning in a giant well and she shuts her eyes and the vision disappears. Again, a lot of the foreshadowing stuff. There's this idea of like Percy and Jason, like two children of the eldest demigod. I mean, not demigods, eldest gods. That's what I meant. Brain's not working. It is so hot here. My brain is actually not working. And it's like two equally powerful people. And it's just like them ending up in situations. And I think Piper's just so scared that something will happen to Jason, which, of course, is like a fair thing. She cares a lot about him. But it's just like sometimes the visions become too much and then she can't take it. She looks at the blade again and she sees an empty highway cut with sunflowers and she sees a man with a purple camp t-shirt offering her a silver goblet. Jason wakes up and Piper asks if he remembers her. Turns out he does remember Piper and she of course helps him to get up. Leo and Hazel eventually land on the ship and Piper asks what happened to him and he says that it's a long story. I agree. Definitely not a story for right now. I don't think it's quite important. Leo eventually runs off to the engine room, and Hazel tells him that they met Narcissus and Nemesis. Percy and Annabeth come running in, covered in tar. They ran into some tar monsters, and poor Frank is, of course, covered too. It's amazing to see how, like, they try to do such a simple task, like fixing the ship, and there's just so many barriers to them doing something like that. Like, it's almost like the world tries to make it as difficult as possible of them even to do the simplest of things. So I do kind of feel bad for them sometimes when they experience stuff like that. Annabeth asks them where Leo is, and Hazel tells her that he's in the engine room. Percy sends Annabeth and Frank to help Leo while he deals with the water spirits. Hazel runs off to her cabin because she was feeling seasick, and Leo calls her for a meeting in the mess hall in an hour. Interesting. I love how formal it is. Like, he just can make that request. He's like, yeah, everybody in the mess hall in exactly an hour. We've got some important things to talk about. I love that they have, like, this team built system, and it's like everybody's involved in it. Everyone knows what's going on, and they tackle issues together. Like, it's not this big thing, which is like, oh, yeah, I'm the hero. I'm supposed to save everybody. Like, it's very much like everybody has an important role to play, and that's what I quite like about this group dynamic, and I'm glad that Rick has sort of written it this way. Like, yeah, it is led by certain characters, but everybody sort of gets an opinion, which I quite like. And once everyone is cleaned up, they meet up in the mess hall, and Piper realizes there is no more running from the great prophecy. Like, this prophecy is going to come true, regardless of what they try to do. So the best thing that they can do instead of fight it is just sort of let it unfold how it needs to. Percy tells them that they need to put some distance between them and the Romans because they aren't far behind. And the Romans, Percy knows, will show them no mercy because, of course, they don't see what they're fighting for. Does that make sense? And Piper proposes that they go back and reason with the Romans, and Annabeth tells her there's no point because they don't know what actually happened. And Hazel agrees with her. To be honest, none of us know what happened at that period of time. And it doesn't get explained for quite a while. So it's just like there's no point in trying to reason with them because there is no proof of their claim. Like, they would just end up walking into a trap, if that makes sense. So sometimes, like, yes, it is important to build the relationship because they can't do this without the Romans, but also it's just like they need a valid enough reason before going back to the Romans, if that makes sense. Hazel reminds them that they only have 6 days before Nico dies and they destroy Rome. And Piper tells them, of course, about these visions that she's been having in her knives. I'm glad that everybody is quite honest. Like, I do appreciate that because it's just like a lot of, like, we see like a lot of group sort of quests and things go wrong because people hide stuff from each other and things just don't get spoken about and things. But what I quite like about this is like kind of like a seamlessness in the group dynamic, which is quite nice, and they're quite good at like working together to solve the problem. I think that that's quite an inspiring thing. It's quite an important lesson to teach people, which is like working as a team is sometimes more superior than working alone, if that makes sense. And like everybody needs a support system because not everybody has it figured out, which I think is quite good. I think it's quite a nice touch that Rick has put in there. Annabeth tells them that they should figure out the lines of the prophecy to try and help them to help them out to see what they're up against. Basically, Percy tells her about the dream he had, with Juno telling him that Annabeth had a difficult task ahead. Annabeth tells them about the myth that, of course, Raina had shared with her, and Leo says that Nemesis mentioned something similar. So, in other words, like everything is slowly coming into place for this prophecy to come true. So, they're just gonna have to roll with the punches and just deal with things as they come. Um, Jason says that he isn't sure. I don't know. I don't know if this is just because I have some sort of personal gripe against Jason, but I just feel like out of everybody, he's not the most on it, and he's not really the most sort of honest, if that makes sense. I always feel like there's something he's holding back, but I don't know. Maybe that's just my personal feelings because I'm not the biggest fan of Jason that I feel that way. I don't know. But yeah, feel free to sort of disagree with me in the comments. I'm happy to take a little bit of hate for my hatred for Jason. Frank agrees with Percy, saying that they're going to need all the gods' help if they are going to win this war. Like, they can't do this alone. Like, I'm glad that they've got it in their head that they can't do this alone, but they also have to figure out a way to convince their parents to help them, if that makes sense. And the chapter sort of closes with Piper suggesting to go to Kansas, a hint that she sort of got from her vision, so that they can gather supplies and finish repairing the ship. Chapter 10, again, we're still in Piper's point of view, and it opens up with Piper talking about how she couldn't sleep because Coach Hedge kept banging against everyone's cabin doors, making sure that no one gets out. You know what? It's so funny, and I think like the irony of it is that obviously like he's trying to make sure that everyone stays asleep and they're not up to anything, but also he's the one that's making the most noise so people can't sleep. I think the irony of it is quite funny. I like the subtle humor in it, and it always makes me giggle whenever I read that bit. Eventually, she falls asleep, but Leo wakes her up, telling her that they have landed. Leo thanks her for not hating him for the incident with the Romans. He feels so bad, guys. Like, he knows that that wasn't him, and he knows that because of him, they lost their opportunity to sort of bond with the Romans. And I'm glad that Rick has given him, all these characters, that humility, that strength to say, you know what, I made a mistake, but I didn't mean it, and I'm going to do everything I can to fix it. And I think that that's such an inspiring thing for people to read. I think Rick's trying to cement this idea that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you sort of own up to it and you can fix it, if that makes sense. And the Argo eventually lands on the highway where Piper has seen her visions. And she says that she wants to find the sign that says Topeka 32. And she tells them about the man in the purple shirt. And she saw Jason, and she thinks it could be Bacchus, who is the Roman form of Dionysus. Leo asks for Annabeth's help with fixing the ship. Two great minds working together, I think is pretty cute actually. And there was a lovely little Percabeth moment, and I've pulled the quote from the book because I'm just extra, and I'm probably like the biggest Percabeth shipper you'll ever meet. So the quote is, "I'll come back to you." He kissed her on the cheek. Promise. And you know what? That finished me off. I gotta be honest, like, do you know what it is? Like, the big Percabeth moments are great. Like, the really romantic stuff is great. But these little things touch my heart even more. Like, it's just like, he knows she needs this reassurance. Like, she won't ask for it, but she looks for it in him. And I think he knows that that worry of losing him has gotten greater since, obviously, what had happened. So I'm glad he always, like, like he's always like, you know what, it's all gonna be okay. I'm coming back to you. Please don't worry. And it's just such a cute thing, and I don't think my heart can take it. And it's just, yeah, they're just adorable. I just love them so much. Like I don't think I feel like, you know, when I read these books again and again, I feel like there will be a time in life where I don't love them as much. But I don't know, I feel like my love for them just grows and they're just even more cool and even more sweet and even more cute. And I just can't hack it. I can't take it. I'm quite weak-hearted when it comes to them. They are my favorite ship ever. I'm not even a romantic person and I love them so much. And I just want them to be happy. And Like, yeah, it's just moments like this. It was just perfect. It's like, especially having them separated for two books. Like, it was so nice to just have these moments again. It was just like, oh, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's great. Percy, Jason, and Piper um go to find the marker, which was actually much further away than Leah had originally predicted. They still had 8 miles to hitchhike, so they decided to call some friends to help them. Jason called Tempest, whereas Percy called. Anybody got any guesses? No? I knew who he was going to call. It's Blackjack. Of course, it's Blackjack. We love Blackjack. He's great. Tempest turns up too, and Piper obviously sits with Jason, and Percy rides Blackjack. They see Bacchus, and he's very, very different from Mr. D. He's looking for something. Oh, he's looking for Ceres. I think that's the Roman form of Demeter, basically. And Bacchus asks Percy if he has met him before, and he tells him that he knows him in his Greek form, which is obviously very, very different from who he is now. And, Piper decides to take over. Maybe Percy isn't the best person to have this conversation with Mr. D. Percy finds it shocking that Bacchus helped the gods in the war. Yeah, do you know what? He's no, like, Dionysus is not. He just seems very lazy to me, and obviously we've seen Mr. D at camp, and he's a bit of a idiot. So it kind of blows my mind that he actually helped the gods in a war. And he says that his weapon was pine cones, and I burst out laughing because I was just like, what kind of. I suppose I'm not really one to judge. He is a god, but I was a bit like, huh? But it was just funny. Like I said, it's these humorous moments in serious situations, and it's something that I admire so much about Rick's writing. And I don't see like a lot of authors be bold and make that sort of choice. So it's quite nice to see Rick do that. I'm glad he's kind of the only person that sort of does that. He tells them about the giant twins, Aphilinus? I think that's how it is, and Otis. Piper realizes that they need Bacchus to help them kill the giants, basically. And he says that he will only help if he gets a tribute. So he tells them to seek out Phorcys or Phorcys. I don't. Do you know what? My pronunciation of these Greek names is absolutely terrible. I am so sorry if I'm butchering these. I need someone to help me work out how to say this. I should probably plan, like, before doing this podcast to like search these names up and hear how people pronounce them. I'm gonna call it Phorcys because I feel like that sounds the most normal, but I'm not sure. In Atlanta, but to be a bit aware of him. Why is it whenever like these gods tell these demigods to seek out people, they're always like, yeah, be aware of this person. They could kill you or they could expect you to do something crazy. And Bacchus senses a trap and he disappears. They all start to get that horrible, like, cold feeling again, and they hear Gaia's voice telling Piper to choose which hero she wants to die, but she refuses. Jason's eyes go gold, and Piper calls Percy for help, but it turns out Percy is possessed too, and him and Jason start charging at each other. And that's where the chapter comes to an end. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, Percy's gonna kill Jason. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna kill Jason. I'm sorry, I'm Team Percy. I don't care what anyone says. My boy could take Jason in a fight. I know it, and I will continue saying it, and I'm happy for people to disagree with me, but I genuinely think Percy would kick Jason's ass. Anyway, second to last chapter we're going to be talking about, which is chapter 11, still in Piper's point of view. Percy and Jason are obviously going at each other, and Piper eventually jumps in and she tries to stop them, but it doesn't work. They are both still completely under Gaia's control. Piper asks the boys who they are, and they say they are eidolons? Eidolons? I don't know if that's how you're supposed to say it, but whatever. Percy has Riptide pressed against Jason's throat, and Piper tells Eidolon to look at her. He sees Blackjack and tells him to knock out Percy, and he does. Oh my god. I was like, I felt bad because Percy, I'm pretty sure like he's been knocked out by Blackjack before. I'm sure it's happened in previous books. I can't remember which one it is. And I was thinking, oh, that's gonna hurt so bad, and he's gonna have like a sort of like hoof shaped mark at the back of his head, which good luck trying to explain that to Annabeth. Piper tells puts both of them on Blackjack and sails for the ship. She tells Leo to set sail for Atlanta, so he does. Annabeth asks what hit Percy, and Piper tells her it was Blackjack. God, I bet she was like, what the hell? She was like, I left you alone with them for like 5 minutes and what have you done? Coach Hedge eventually nurses both boys back to health and they both wake up. Percy and Jason talk about how great they would be at killing each other, but Annabeth shuts them. I don't think that's really the sort of appropriate conversation, to be fair. Like, they are friends. Like, I think they're trying to like one up each other and be like, yeah, I could kill you and I could do this to you and I could do that for you. And I think eventually Annabeth's like, okay, enough. Like, let's concentrate on what's actually important. Percy says all they need to talk. No, hold on. Percy says that they all need to talk. So Annabeth tells them to come to the mess hall in 10 minutes. I love that this mess hall is kind of like their, I'm going to call it like a democratic base. And it's just the place where everybody kind of sits at the round table and talks to each other about battle strategy, plans, things to do moving forward, etc., etc. Piper tells everybody what happened to Jason, and she suggests contacting Raina to explain what happened. Jason thinks that Piper could convince her. Ooh, it's the way he said it. I was a bit like, bro, I don't think Piper's the right person just because Raina doesn't like her very much because she kind of stole her boyfriend. But yeah, I was just like, you know what? It's one of those things where it makes me think like men are so like dense. Like they just don't pick up on the hints. I don't think Piper wants to have a conversation with someone who Jason had interest in and who was interested in Jason. I just think that's very awkward. Anyway, Piper tells him that it won't work, and Hazel and Frank agree with her. I think, yeah, I do agree that she's right about that. Jason says that they should continue going to the Atlantic because the Roman demigods won't go there. They discuss Bacchus, but Piper tells them Gaia wants two of them, a male and a female demigod. Their blood is somewhat useful in her plan. Percy knows who Phorcys is, and he's apparently an old sea god before Poseidon's time. And Piper tells them that the eidolons are in the room with them right now, and that's where a chapter comes to it. So it's a bit of a like a cliffhanger, like on the edge, like made my skin crawl sort of moment. Okay, so the last chapter we are going to be talking about before I share my final thoughts and feelings and wrap this segment of the podcast up is we're still in Piper's point of view, and Piper says that she couldn't explain how she knew, she just knew that they were there. Hazel says that Piper is right and that she had met those spirits during her time in the underworld. Piper tells them that the Eldons. Piper tells the I'm getting word vomit. Piper tells the Eldons to raise their hands. Leo, Jason, and Percy all raise their hands, and Piper commands the spirits to leave their bodies, but they refuse. Hazel tells the spirits to obey Piper, and she makes them promise on the river Styx that they will never possess anyone on the ship or ever return to the ship again. Flipping out. I was like, oh my god, I was like, what is going on? Um, of course, the Eldons agree to the vow and leave the boys' bodies. Jason thanks Piper for saving him again, and he promises that they are going to find a way to stop Gaia. Piper prays to her mother Aphrodite not to take Jason away from her, and she asks him why he didn't talk about the legend, and he tells her it's because if it comes true, it would be dangerous for all of them. Slightly ominous. I don't like, I think this adds to one of the reasons why I don't like Jason. I don't like his secretive nature. I just think it's a bit weird. Like, you know, for us, like, I think obviously because the first five books are written in Percy's point of view, like, we constantly know, like, what's going on in his head. So we get attached to him because we know him sort of inside and out. Whereas with Jason, like, it's not quite the same. So I can see why I don't feel like as much of a connection to him as I maybe feel to Percy. And obviously, like, I do love Percy with all my heart. And yeah, I just don't like that he's holding something back from the group. Like, I wish he would just be as honest as Percy is. Like, you know, Percy's not afraid to say that he's scared. And I feel like Jason is very much about holding up this tough exterior. Yes, he is a praetor in a Roman legion, and obviously they're taught to be very strong, but I feel like it's very important as an audience to be able to relate to a character, which is why I wish that Jason was a bit more like Percy. But anyway, there is only one Percy at the end of the day, and we can't all be like him. Anyway, Piper tells Jason to tell Annabeth about the Mark of Athena. Jason apologizes for asking her to persuade Raina. Oh my god, I was like, finally, the penny in his brain dropped that he said something stupid. And I'm glad that he said sorry to her for that. I'm glad that we were encouraging people to not only like apologize for their actions, but to also like do something about it, if that makes sense. He promises that he won't go back to Camp Jupiter without her, and poor Piper, by the end of the chapter, even as it's wrapping up, is still haunted by the visions that she's seen in her life. Okay, so that's all of the chapters we're going to be talking about in this episode. So we're going to kind of just wrap this up with my final thoughts and feelings. This will be quick, hopefully, because I've been talking for a long time. Piper's visions were actually really scary. Like, she was brave enough to sort of like watch them all, even though she hated it. Whereas like that would just scare the crap out of me. I don't think I would be able to do that. Echo is so cute, and Narcissus was very annoying. But I kind of do like that he was part of the story. That's such an interesting myth that I don't think a lot of like books sort of cover, if that makes sense. Like they don't really include it, so it's quite nice that we got to see like a different sort of character. Blackjack is back. I love him so much, and he was obviously one of Percy's best companions. So anytime like somebody makes a return from the previous 5 books, it genuinely does get me very excited. I'm sorry that the part when Jason and Percy were fighting was so unexpected, and I'm sorry that I'm Team Percy. I'm not sorry, actually. I will not apologize for that. I will still think that Percy could have won. And I kind of forgot that that happened. I remember when I was rereading this book, I like when it got to this bit, and I was just like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, they have a bit of a fight." Yeah, I read the Heroes of Olympus I think 3 times now, all the way through. So my knowledge is getting a little bit better. But initially, when I was taking these notes, obviously I didn't see it coming. Bacchus is probably just as annoying as Mr. D. Like, I don't think much has changed on that end. I wouldn't say that his Roman counterpart is much better, but that's okay. He's just supposed to be an annoying person, isn't he? And he just obviously has it out for Percy, which is just one of those things that I just don't like. The eidolons were so freaky. Like that entire scene where like Piper just talks to them directly and they all raise their hands. I thought that was so creepy, but it's such a cool concept. Um, and it shows like how much more I feel like I say this in every episode. It just shows like how much more mature this series is now, and like they're facing real danger. Like danger sometimes is present in the room with them, and maybe they don't even realize, which is quite terrifying. But yeah, I'm glad that Rick has made these like more mature and more sort of targeted at a older audience, which is quite nice. And honestly, I'm really excited for Annabeth to find out about all of the Mark of Athena stuff. I know she's going to be amazing at the quest, and I know it's going to be hard for me to watch her do that, but I'm still going to be like cheering for her throughout the way, and I can't wait to share more of her quest with you guys. Okay, that's it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening in. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, all episodes on my podcast are available to stream on Spotify and on my YouTube channel, both at Aamsuntitledpodcast. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody who follows me on Instagram, follow me on Threads, Spotify, YouTube. I love you guys. I appreciate all the support you give me. And if you're new here, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Spotify to be the first to know when a new episode goes live. Um, if you have any questions for me, my email is open, my Instagram DMs are open. Feel free to contact me on Threads as well. A few people have done that. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Is there anything that I'm forgetting? I don't think so. Sometimes I do forget to say stuff, but yeah, I think I've covered everything today. Again, I'm so excited to share more season 3 content. We're getting there. November 20th. I'm booking the day off work and I'm sitting and I'm watching the first 2 episodes with you guys, and I will be weekly reviewing them with you. Because I think that's a better idea. I think I will just hopefully we will be done with the Mark of Athena book by then, and I will just go straight into season 3 content, but we'll see how everything plans out in the end. D23 is 15th of August, so hopefully we get some more season 3 content then. I will keep you guys updated. And in the future, any sort of Percy Jackson content is all available on my social media, so check those out, and I will be speaking to you guys very soon. Bye!